come on, keeping up with the Joneses. It's no huddle time. We go crazy here. We do 2 stories in one segment. What'd I tell you? Friday, I came in here and said, mashed potatoes out there, gravy. America's team beat the Jets for the 14th straight time. Zach Wilson completed 9 passes as the Jets offense mustered 2 yards in the second half. Here's the quote reverberating around New York. Take a listen.
Do you feel like you let the defense down?
No.
Okay. Your reaction.
Hey, you just have to bench him.
Wow.
You listen. You play a young quarterback, even when you think he's probably not the guy, you still keep him in there because his growth is more important than in winning individual games. But not for the Jets this year, and not when it's clear he's not an NFL starter. The Jets, if they had won yesterday, would have been first place in the AFC West. The Zach Wilson pick, this is my own opinion, never made a ton of sense. You remember that draft? Remember the draft? It was like Trevor Lawrence is a no doubt one. That made sense to the Prince that was promised, one of the greatest college players ever. And then everyone just said, and the Jets are locked in on Zach Wilson at 2. The draft starts at 3. And no one ever really knew why they were locked in on Zach Wilson at 2. And he had that one pro day throw where he looked like Mahomes. We were like, he's the guy. He's been awful. We can show you the numbers. He's the worst quarterback in the league for the 2nd straight year. I mean, there's only 32 teams, folks, and he's 31st or 32nd or 33rd or 34th in everything. Again, only 32 teams. He's not going to be your quarterback next year. I can't believe I'm saying this.
Say it.
But I think Joe Flacco or Mike White give you a better chance. And I think for the Jets, it's important with Robert Saleh trying to instill a winning culture to win games, to get some playoff experience. That defense is awesome. The running game is good. And it's one thing to be terrible. It's another thing to be terrible and not that likable. He seems to be, hitting the exacta on that right now. So I'd be done with it.
And when you talk about not being likable, but how about just being accountable? How about just being accountable? And when you're in a leadership position, one of the most important things that you can do is stand up and say, yeah, I could have done a lot better. And I don't know how you stand up there and say the offense didn't let the defense down. If that's not letting the defense down, then I guess we could look at the first Patriots game. Maybe that's what letting the defense down is. So maybe that's the bar that he's working off to come into this game. And you're right, Nick. At this point, they've got to be talking about how quickly.
I thought you were going to disagree with me.
No. And I've said this now for 2 or 3 weeks where he's been the issue. And he's been losing games for him. Now it's okay, maybe you're not losing games, but you're not seeing any signs that he's going to win games for him.
And they had guys open, man. I know he got hit a lot, but on times, but the receivers are frustrated. Everyone's got to be frustrated.
And not only that, when you're sitting in the locker room and everybody knows what the situation is, and you stand up and say, "Yeah, it wasn't me. It wasn't me." So then who is it?
Do you have an issue with him saying it was windy out there, guys? Because
he did say that.
He did. But here's the thing. It was windy.
Yeah, so but Mac Jones' noodle arm threw for what, 300?
246. Yeah, it looked like 300. He was slinging it out there. He looked great.
I understand it was windy out there, and I appreciate that, and it's hard to throw in windy conditions, but he was throwing the ball to the Patriots quite often. They just couldn't capitalize on it. I mean, it hit guy in the chest late in the game. He throws the out that should have been picked off.
Yeah.
And then they come down to the last drive, and they're going to run the ball twice after they get the first down on the penalty, instead of putting the ball in his hands because they were worried that he was going to make a mistake to lose the game. And every other position is held accountable in the locker room, and there's always this fear to make changes at quarterback, but they're in the playoff hunt right now.
They're not a playoff team.
Whether you say that,
potatoes out
whether you say that or not, you could say the same thing about New England, but they're both in the hunt.
Of course,
I don't know if I'd bench him just yet, because if you bench him, like, he's not your guy. Now I admit I like what you said, Nick. And he's reminding me of Johnny Manziel and Baker Mayfield, like a guy that thinks he's better. And obviously he's not as good as Baker, but a guy that thinks he's better than he is, doesn't really hold himself accountable, and deflects the
Reminds me
blame.
of Darnold from his play standpoint, not from the guy.
Right,
from
not
his
from
play
attitude.
standpoint. Yep.
Hey, Hubs, just as a special treat to me, because we had it built, can we see the Mac Jones full screen before we move on?
He
to
also
the other
scored
story?
3 points.
Well, I just want to say it just as a special treat to me. Thanksgiving came early.
We did say Wildes. I think Nick picked Zach Wilson on Friday. Right?
No,
we did say we would go with Mac Jones. If forced to pick one of the two.
I said no.
Did you say Zach?
You didn't say Zach. I said I'll pick neither.
Woo, thank you, Hubs. Appreciate that.
Here we go.
Check out the Broncos. For the checks notes, every game this season, the Broncos failed to impress on offense and lost 22-16 to Hubs' lowly Raiders in overtime. Here's Russ talking about his journey. Oh, boy. Take a listen to this.
We're on the learning end of the experience of how to get back to winning, and sometimes it's a journey, sometimes it's an ugly one. We're in a pruning process. We're in a process of understanding that the journey of winning and the journey of learning how to be our best throughout a whole entire game and learning how to continue to grow, learning how to stay together.
Don't stop believing, Russ.
Bro, it's time, man. It's like the Titanic's going down, and you're like, no, we got a chance. I'm going to drag you off into the lifeboat.
I'm going to sit this one out.
What's
You guys go ahead and discuss.
What's more likely? For Russ to ever cook again, or that Russ is cooked?
That's not the question.
No.
The question is Russ cooked?
Yeah.
Time to admit he's cooked, and no, it's not time. It's time to admit he's had a horrible season. And I'm not going to blame it on Nathaniel Hackett or a new offense and all that. It is on Russell Wilson. But I like the press conference because, you think people feel like he comes off phony.
Yeah.
That didn't look phony, though. That looked like he's really
despondent?
Yeah.
Defeated?
Yes.
In over his head?
He needs
football?
that. Here's my
lowest
thing,
scoring
Coach.
team in the league.
I'm not going to write a guy off that's been, a 9-time Pro Bowler?
Oh, we got to.
Nobody cares about that.
11. I think it might be 11.
Okay, well, whatever it is, it ain't getting to 12.
Won a Super Bowl, been to 2, been to as many Super Bowls as Pat Mahomes. But anyway, I'm not going to write him off at 33.
Okay.
Be 34
but he's
in a
written
couple
himself
weeks
off.
next week.
Bro, they're the lowest scoring
at
team in the league.
33, he'll have presumably have a new, better coach next year.
We're next year already.
And that's all I'm saying. I'm just going off his history and that he's still relatively young. And with his work ethic, with his character, with his competitiveness and pride, I think this summer is going to be the most important summer of his career.
No quarterback has hurt their team more this year than Russell Wilson.
He's been horrible.
I want to say that again. No quarterback has hurt their team this year more than Russell Wilson has hurt his.
Zach Wilson.
They have 6 wins. They have 6 wins.
And
this is the number 3 defense in football. They are the number 32 offense. If they scored, this stat's going around, but it is mind-blowing, so I will reiterate it. If they scored 18 points in every game this year in regulation, Coach, they'd be 9-1. The Raiders are 1-7 against the NFL and 2-0 against whatever the hell is going on in Denver. There is not, Coach, I don't think there's a team in the AFC that is in a worse position right now and moving forward than the Denver Broncos.
that contract.
They're minus picks, they have the contracts, and they're broken.
Well, they have a great defense, which gives you a chance. And Chris, I'm gonna have to. I think
you think he's washed.
I think the great. Well, I don't know. I'm not saying that. I get frustrated where someone stands up and says, "Hey, it's a journey." Yeah, it's a $250 million journey. It's a $250 million journey. We hired you to be the Sherpa. We hired you to take us to the next level. We hired you to do good things. You can't. You're not allowed to take this journey. It's not. And look, the head coach could be an issue, but Aaron Rodgers was MVP with a rookie head coach. Yeah. So the expectation that I had of him going to Denver was so dramatically different. I could not have predicted this in a million years where he is versus what
and
I
every
thought
game's
he would
the
do.
same. Every single game is the same for the Broncos.
And
you saw, Brew, they changed the NFL MVP voting structure.
Oh,
This is a true story. On Friday, it has been forever that you submit one name. It's 50 guys, submit one name. They changed it officially. I'm not joking here. The way the NBA does it. You submit a 5-name ballot, which means Geno Smith is going to get an MVP vote before Russell Wilson. 100%. Geno Smith's going to show up on somebody's MVP ballot. Russell Wilson. No, I don't have a vote. Russell Wilson, meanwhile, never again. Never before, never again.
I'm just looking at the track record. I think he can bounce.
If only someone could have
I'm
seen
not ready to say he's totally.
There you go.
That water's
Kitchen's
hot.
on fire.
He's
Coming up
young.
after
He's
the
still
break.
young.
Are the Chiefs Super Bowl bound? Well, let's not go that far. Let's not jump ahead of ourselves.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get more from the show and to check out clips from other shows on FS1.